Hello and welcome to our second interview. I'm really glad we have Sandra here with us today. Today's topic is, on the one hand, very sensitive. On the other hand, it's a huge trend. So today we want to speak together about narcissism. I'm strongly convinced this topic touches many people. And I also believe that some people are not really aware of this topic. So what we want to figure out today is, what does narcissism actually mean? And how can I figure out if I'm dealing in my life, maybe in my family, my friendship circle, or at work, or maybe somewhere where I'm practicing my hobbies? Am I actually dealing there with a narcissist? And is it true that everyone has narcissistic potential? So, or so-called narcissistic signs. So let's dive in and unpack it together. Sandra, my first question to you is, how did you start to get in touch with this topic? What sparked your interest in the topic of narcissism?
So I've always been into self-development, and I've heard about narcissism. To be honest, maybe I didn't take the topic as seriously or I didn't focus on it as much
Hmm.
until I realized I am going through narcissistic abuse. Um, it was a relationship where nobody would have thought this is happening. And only then I was like diving a bit more into the topic and I started to really understand what it means.
Yeah, this is really interesting. So can you tell us, so how did you realize, or when was this moment, okay, I'm actually dealing with a narcissist?
It was so covert, I still wasn't able to detect its narcissism. I thought something's wrong. I thought it's a toxic relationship. I didn't
Hmm.
know it's narcissism. And the only way I could find out was when I really got educated on covert narcissism because I was already educated on normal narcissism. Like it's all over the internet and everybody calls everybody a narcissist basically. But
Hmm.
only through thorough reading and understanding what makes somebody a narcissist, that's when I understood.
Okay, and how would you define narcissism in very simple terms, especially for people who think it just means being full of yourself?
Exactly, that's such a good question because this was actually the picture I had of a narcissist as well. In my head, it was somebody who was full of themselves, who was confident. It is obviously true, but it's only true for the overt narcissists.
Hmm.
A narcissist has an issue with their self-worth, but it's more in the sense of they think they're a bit more important than others
Hmm.
or a bit more right than others, a bit better than others, secretly sometimes, and
Hmm.
sometimes not as secretly, but they have a sense of over importance.
Hmm.
And one could argue that kids at their core are to some extent narcissistic because in their head, the world evolves around them. They
Yeah.
can't see the other person's point of view. The world's just about them. And if mom's shouting at me, I'm bad. And if my parents fight, I'm bad. And it's kind of to some extent narcissistic. But what usually happens is that when we grow up, we
Hmm.
learn there's other opinions, there's other people, and they are just as important as I am. And the
Yeah.
world doesn't evolve around me, basically. um, yeah, it's it sounds so logical, but
Hmm.
I think some people just don't really go through that development and they have these tendencies in their family. So there's the overimportance of the self. So
Hmm.
that means if other people are not as important as I am, I'm gonna manipulate them to get my needs met. And I think
Hmm.
that's another important cornerstone of
Yeah.
narcissism because and it ties in together really well because then that's when it really starts to hurt other people. The overt narcissist has their charm and they lure in people with their charm, and then people give them attention and they keep manipulating the situation through gaslighting, whatever, to
Hmm.
keep getting this attention, to keep getting their needs met. The covert narcissism is the poor one,
Mm-hmm.
It's the cute one, it's the nice one, but all this niceness again is just like a form of manipulation because once they have you, once they've lured you in, a lot
Yeah.
of the time it's like once you've made certain commitments, such as moving in together,
Mm-hmm.
having a child, all this type of stuff, that's when you really see their true face.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to share something with them that bothers you, they might just leave the house for 3 days and not come back and cheat during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's whatever they need and want. And another big cornerstone is also narcissistic supply. So they always need supply in the form of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So once you're not giving them their supply, you're not meeting their needs, you're gonna get discarded and they're gonna get a new person to do your job.
Mm-hmm. Wow. It's already a lot you mentioned. Thank you. So let's be real. Isn't everyone a little bit narcissistic sometimes? And where can we draw the line between normal self-focus and something more toxic?
Mhm. That's again a very good question because I believe that we all have narcissistic traits. And like I said, kids to some extent are narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
And to some extent, it's important as well to be slightly narcissistic. So we're all on a spectrum. And a lot of people say this person was a narcissist, that person was a narcissist, and they got no clue because everybody is on a spectrum.
Yeah.
Somebody has to meet a lot of criteria to be a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
Other people might just be on the spectrum with narcissistic tendencies. So, for example, somebody who is a CEO of a company, they might be a narcissist, but they also might just seem a bit grandiose because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yeah.
this position, you need to be that persona who says, well, we're doing this now. You can't be you can't be clueless. You need to be a bit confident, otherwise this position
Mm-hmm.
is not going to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Understood. Thank you. What are the key signs that someone might be a narcissist, especially in everyday situations like dating, friendships, or at work?
It's very hard to tell early on if somebody's a narcissist
Yeah.
if you don't know a lot about narcissism and if you've never experienced it, and
Mhm.
if you have bad self-worth. But
Okay.
yeah, what usually happens is that they just move incredibly fast sometimes. In
Hmm.
relationships, for example, they might tell you they love you on the second date.
Hmm.
Happened to me. They might try everything to get you to commit to them very soon. It's very fast in dating, for example. In friendships, it can be the same. Just you get a lot of praise at the start, and they're so charming and so nice, and you can do everything, and it feels like you've known each other forever, but
Hmm.
not in a cool, connected way. More, you can tell something's off, something's a bit fast. But
Hmm.
if your self-worth isn't good, you're gonna kind of like it. You're going to appreciate this attention as well. And they
Hmm.
just do that to lure you in, so you're hooked.
Yeah.
And that's what usually feels off. Then it's also, for me, also an indicator is if people talk about past relationships
Hmm.
and you ask them, so what was the part you played? And
Hmm.
they said, well, I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm. And then what happens? You mentioned, like in the beginning, they do everything to get you inside the relationship. And then after they have you, what happens then?
Once they've lured you in, once you've made all these commitments, that's usually when the very difficult abuse happens.
Hmm.
Because now they know you're probably not going to escape. Once you have kids together, once you're living together, it's very hard to escape. If you have a contract and it's for like another year, it's very hard to get out.
Yeah.
They know they kind of have you. So now they start to show their real face. They start
Mm-hmm.
to do whatever they want. They start to invalidate your emotions, your feelings. If you have any criticism for them,
Mm.
there's gonna be a big backlash.
Yeah.
Um, and then over time, the discarding happens. So once they feel like you're not giving them the supply anymore, or just it could also be that maybe they get bored, nobody really knows. Usually it's like the abuse happens, the victim starts to react to the abuse
Mm-hmm.
because this is normal. Then what happens is so-called reactive abuse. So the person that gets abused reacts, sometimes very strong reactions, such as shouting as well, because who's not going to react to that? And then the narcissist will use the reaction
Yeah.
to say you're the problem. They're going
Mm-hmm.
to push you, push you, push you. You might be a very timid, very kind, very patient person, but they push you, push you, push you until you break, you shout, and that's when they get the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Happened to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
That I was crying, shouting, I threw something against the wall. He
Yeah.
got the camera and filmed me and was like, I'm going to show everybody.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is really crazy, and I understand now the pattern behind it. So they put actually the guilt on you, and they provoke you so much that at the end you are the bad person who did the bad thing, and they are like without guilt, blame, and shame. So it's very, very tricky, especially what I learned now in a romantic context.
For me, being a narcissist is really somebody who manipulates and does everything to get their needs met in a very cruel way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So, what would you say might be then the difference between narcissism and healthy self-confidence? Because it feels like that line gets blurry sometimes.
Yes, yes, I agree. So, healthy self-confidence is when you're willing to go out in the world, face rejection,
Mm-hmm.
and still stand up for yourself. You can be very confident, and I think a lot of the time that doesn't mean you're narcissistic. I think narcissists, in my opinion, I got a feeling there
Mm.
is a problem with their self-worth.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, the confidence is put on. To me, it's like a bit like an act to get people to do things for you, to get that narcissistic supply. Whereas if you're actually confident, you're just confident. You don't care about the outcome. You're not confident to do
Yeah.
something, to get something. And I think that's the key difference.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And how does it affect someone emotionally when they're in a relationship, let it be romantic or platonic, with a narcissistic person? I guess you mentioned already some aspects, but maybe we can also, yeah, think about it again. So someone you were in a narcissistic relationship, a very abusive one. So emotionally, what happened to you, and maybe also what if I have within a platonic relationship a narcissistic person? What could be the emotional outcome?
Mm, Very good question again. And I think it's important to go into this very much in detail
Yeah.
because I still see the effects. So I've done so much work on myself. I've been into self-development for 15 years, and
Yeah.
still I catch myself or I see these downsides and these characteristic traits in myself that the narcissism has caused. So it wasn't only one narcissistic relationship I've been through. I've been through a few, romantic and platonic.
Yeah.
And I see myself second guessing things
Hmm.
still. Even if I know them 100%, I sometimes still second guess myself.
Hmm.
They tend to gaslight you and your emotions. So whatever you feel, whatever complaint you have, if they don't like it, you're the crazy one. So at one point you do feel like your emotions are not valid. At one point you feel like you're not lovable the way you are, because everything you feel and say and do is wrong, and you get lots of put downs, especially
Mhm.
like in the devaluing and discarding phase. You're just treated like dirt.
Mhm.
And that really has an impact on your self-worth, especially if you were close with the person. It can also in platonic relationships, because friends are very important, and it's important to have somebody validate your emotions, even if
Yeah.
they don't entirely always agree with you. Um,
Mhm.
and so very much self-doubt, very much doubting what you experience. So this is also very important for narcissistic abuse survivors.
Mhm.
Somebody really needs to validate their emotions at one point, because nobody's ever done that. They think they got a lot of shame of for feeling the way they do feel, even though it's very legitimate, but they've always been told they're the problem. So whatever they feel, they think is wrong.
Yeah. Wow. That's really, really deep. Thank you. And what are some common red flags that young people should be aware of in their relationships and friendships?
Hmm. So, like I said, when things are moving very fast,
Mm-hmm.
when they see signs of their emotions being validated, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge red flag. When the
Yeah.
person states that it's never them that was the problem, so in every situation it was everybody else and it's never been them, huge red flag.
Mm-hmm.
If they see that certain stories get twisted a bit,
Yeah.
that's only when you get to know the person better. But once you experience something together and then
Mm-hmm.
you realize this person is twisting things a bit, if they like to gossip all the time about other people, it's usually them who is the problem and who's a
Mm-hmm.
bit narcissistic and also always needs that thrill of gossiping and needs to elevate themselves. Also, things like backhanded compliments, light bullying, and overt bullying, of course, because if I need to bully somebody, there is something very wrong with me. And I think
Mm-hmm.
these are like, yeah, early-ish signs. You don't need to necessarily know somebody for years to see those things.
Thank you. What would you say to someone who thinks they're stuck in a toxic relationship with a narcissist? How can they actually protect themselves emotionally?
How can they protect themselves emotionally? Very hard, very hard.
Hmm.
Really understanding what this is the first step. Because in a narcissistic, abusive relationship, it's very hard to see what it is, because the narcissist keeps gaslighting you. No, you're the problem. No, I'm not doing anything wrong. And
Yeah.
even if you suffer so much, you're still the problem, and everything you do is wrong. So you need to recognize what they are doing. They're manipulating you. And once you've realized this, you need to take that person, put them in a mental box of crazy. They're not normal.
Hmm.
Get support from people you trust, from people who trust you, who know
Hmm.
you, and who can validate your emotions in this difficult time. Because yeah, you might have people around you, but if they don't trust you and they think you're the problem, you got now more people that say you're the problem, and that can happen to you. Or you might get the lovely enablers, which are my favorite ones,
Mhm.
which see the abuse and they're like, don't argue. No, it's all fine. Is he really that bad? No, he's not that bad. They're my
Hmm.
favorite ones. They're sometimes even worse than the narcissists, because you go to them for help
Yeah.
and they just tell you you're crazy again and you should keep the peace and why you're stressing about this. Again, invalidation of your emotions. So stay away from these people, stay away from the narcissist as far
Hmm.
as you can. And I understand, yeah, there might be some situations where it's hard, but still get as much distance as possible. Even if you have kids together, live somewhere else. Even if you need to live with your parents again, anything better than living with the narcissist, because the abuse is not going to get better, it's going to get worse.
Hmm.
And the more distance you seek, the less control they have over you, the better. And sometimes in this process, they're going to try to regain control. So
Hmm.
they've done something bad, you react to it, or you just stop reacting overtly, you just seek distance.
Yeah.
Now they're gonna put on the act of being nice one again and oh no, it was just this, I was just stressed and please come back because it was just this time and everything's gonna change now and you fall back into the trap.
Mm.
Boom. And it happens again. And every time it gets worse. And every time in every cycle, they give you less and expect more, even if they've lured you in. So once they've lured you in, back
Mm.
in, it's honeymoon again. But
Yeah.
this honeymoon gets shorter and shorter every time they've lured you back in because they also want to test out how little you're willing to accept. And every time you accept this apology, they know
Mm.
they can just use you even more. So as much distance as you can get and be safe. Because once you create this distance, on one hand, they're gonna try lure you in, or
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna get violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you believe actually narcissists can change? Or what would it take for real growth to happen? Is there the potential that they can grow out of this narcissistic pattern and change? Or are they somehow stuck? Yeah.
I think one big reason why narcissists stay stuck is because they don't seek therapy. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
say you can't change narcissist. One big problem is that they don't seek therapy, they don't see the problem with themselves. And let's say if they were to go to therapy, so sometimes in family settings, then it's like couples therapy and the person takes the narcissist to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
If that even happens, that's already a big step if they actually go there.
Yeah.
They're gonna tell the therapist a very different story. They're gonna paint such a beautiful picture of themselves that sometimes they manage to fool the therapist. So
Mm-hmm.
you take your little narcissist to therapy, and then even the therapist might think you're the problem because
Mm.
you're the one that's reacting to the abuse, and you're stressed and you're erratic, and the narcissist is there like kind, charming. I don't know
Mm.
what's going wrong. Like, I don't know what's going on with her. It used to be such a good relationship, blah, blah. So it's very hard for them to recognize they're a narcissist to get that diagnosis. They might
Yeah.
try even fool the therapist, and I think that's one big problem. So I think there's very little data on treating narcissists because of that. It's usually their victims going to therapy. Um, Maybe if they do get some sort of diagnosis, so narcissists, they get misdiagnosed, I believe, with borderline or anything else. I think there's lots of misdiagnoses because of that fooling the therapist. So the covert narcissist, they might actually go to therapy, but it's like everybody was so bad to me and I need help
Mm.
and I can't work. I need money from the state, whatever. Again,
Mm-hmm.
to get some sort of need met or just to have somebody to talk to, they get misdiagnosed. Then they got PTSD, then they got whatever it may be. So I think that's the problem. We need more data
Mm.
on actually having narcissists in therapy. That would be lovely. And then I could have a stronger opinion on this.
I understand. Thank you. At the end, my question is if you could give one key piece of advice to our young people who are watching this episode, who, like, yeah, to who we have the young people, how can these young people, build healthy, emotionally balanced relationships? And what would it be? So, what would be your key advice? Okay, how can young people age 18 until 35, let it be this time. So how can they actually build healthy, emotionally balanced relationships with all of the knowledge you just mentioned, for what I'm also very grateful? What would you suggest and tell them?
How to build healthy relationships. So
Yeah.
I think a big part is self-reflection and self-awareness, especially if you're young. The blame game has never helped anybody. Of course, in narcissistic abuse, it's important to realize they're narcissists, to blame them for certain things because it's true. But there has to be a point where we come to understand what is the role I'm playing in all of this. Why am I falling for this type of person? And yes, they are very manipulative. Yes, I was not very educated on the subject. Yes, I've never experienced this before. So yes, obviously, like also be nice to yourself and understand, but
Mhm.
start reflecting in what ways was I so easy to manipulate? Because
Uh,
there is people that can see through
yeah.
that stuff, even though it's very hard. But if you have good self-worth and they try to lure you in like this and they give you all this attention, it's not going to have the same effect as if your self-worth is low and somebody comes and says, "You're the best. Oh my God, you're everything I've ever wanted and needed." And they say, "I love you" on the second day and all this sort of stuff. Or even friends, they're just like luring you in so much. If your self-worth is good, you're gonna be like, yeah, I know I'm good, but I'm not perfect. I don't
Mhm.
need to be put on a pedestal. This feels a bit unnatural. And
Yeah.
also, like, you'd leave it a bit more time. You'd not be like, finally, the person I've needed all my life to finally validate me. It's more like, I'm gonna give this some time, look at it, and
Mhm.
collect more information. And you're also going to listen to your gut feeling. So, one big thing is reflect on everything that's happening to you. Don't just point with your finger and everybody's a narcissist.
Yeah.
Yes, great. Some people are not, though. Some people are just on a spectrum, and sometimes it is you as well who
Mhm.
has narcissistic traits as well, or does things that triggers other people and then they react and you don't even know.
Mhm.
So reflect on what you're doing, but be kind to yourself, build up your self-worth, realize you are worthy as you are. And then it's very difficult to fall for these types of people, but it's also
Mhm.
very difficult to just not see your mistakes. If you can look at yourself kindly and be like, well, yeah, I did actually mess up here, then you
Mhm.
can work on it. Not like blaming them and blaming you and blaming, they are narcissistic and I'm stupid for falling for this. No, like just stop it. Just be kind to yourself and
Mhm.
really take the time to look at situations, reflect on them, and I think then it gets easier.
Wow, that's so much good advice at the end. Thank you so, so much, Sandy, for the second interview you have given us first live. And I'm strongly convinced that many young people will go away from this interview with being touched on the one hand, but also with a clear idea of what narcissism is and how important it is to protect their self-worth while still staying open and, yeah, aware of what's going on. And to everyone here who now understood that he or she might be maybe even going through a tough situation or being trapped by a narcissist in his or her environment, I just want to say you are not alone. Many people go through it. And Sandy, thank you so much again that you have opened up your heart so much and shared your insights, your knowledge, and also very good advice. And yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to still keep asking questions, be very self reflective, what you told us, and also what you told us the first time to be very aware of boundaries. And also, yeah, it's never, how can I say, it's never too late also to reach out for help. You spoke also a lot about therapy, about self development, and that we actually never start and never end to learn. And this was really, really nice to have you here again. And now I'm again looking forward because we are continuing the series and we have more topics to come. So for everyone, stay tuned, stay curious. And yeah, thank you, Sandy, for being here with us today again. And yeah, see you all next time. Bye bye.